educational we're recording today for educational and promotional purposes. It will be posted on the website. So glad to see all our returnees today. So we're going to go around, and each person will have, except for the trainers, will have 30 seconds to speak on one or all of these. How was the empathy buddy call? Any short report from facilitating an empathy circle. If you did one this week, you want feedback or tell us about it. And any questions or comments from the last session that we didn't get a chance to cover. So you have 30 seconds with those 3 questions. Your buddy call, any comments or suggestions from the last session, and tell us if you facilitated a empathy circle. Tell us how well it went. And we will start with Gary.
Yeah, I didn't get to do my buddy call, but I did do a small empathy circle with my ex-wife and a friend of ours, and it's quite interesting. You know, she was kind of surprised, but then it kind of fell apart because they wasn't focused. So at least I made the effort, and
All right.
I learned something.
Well, good, very good. All right, Joelle. No, there's training. Let me see. Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. So I had a buddy call with, I hope I'm saying this right, Vincente. Okay. And it was great. It's just so nice to have someone to talk with about this journey, since, you know, we have questions about it and we're trying to see how it can apply most effectively, and just to be sharing our journeys with people doing the same work. So I really enjoyed it. I did have an empathy circle with some old friends, and I do have questions eventually. It went really well, but I felt like the participants took the prior knowledge of us, you know, each other, and applied it to you know, some of their, you know, kind of paraphrasing. So I just wanted to know what to do in those circumstances, but I'm really enjoying this, so thank you.
Okay. You want to come back to that, and maybe Lou or Edwin can address that, ones with more knowledge. Okay. Kendra, how was your buddy call? Did you do a circle?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's Kendria.
Kendria.
So I did my buddy call with Larry, and it was awesome. But I don't think I was in my circle with Larry also on Monday. So I expected nothing short of amazing, and he gave me just that. I also did a empathy circle with a group of engineers out of Houston. And it was good. I don't, since they're engineers, they are very analytical. And for this, it gave them a chance to kind of get outside of that. So I think it was good. With more practice, I'll be better. But for the first time out the gate, I think it was okay.
Very good. Excellent. Zapata, I'm sorry. I know I messed up your name.
Thank you, Linda. This is Zapata here. Thank you for this opportunity. So yeah, I didn't do buddy call, but I did facilitation of empathy circle with my family. So the initial understanding and what the way I was telling, right? So everybody was like, this is all like everyone, we all know this. Why do we explicitly call out what you are saying or what he is saying? So we're still learning on this. So I will share further updates how it will go. Yeah, that's my learning. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. They said, why do you, what? Your family
I did
said,
empathy circle within my family, yeah.
And they said, why do you?
So empathy circle, I started facilitating around the reflections, observations, needs and feelings behind those. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Anne? No, your train, I'm sorry. All right, y'all moved on the screen. All right, Dominique?
Hi, I arrived a little late, so Sorry, what are,
Oh.
what are
It's a 30 seconds. Tell us if you had a buddy call, how that went. If you facilitated a circle, tell us how that went. If you have any questions from the last session, you can throw that in there too. All
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So yes, I had my buddy call and that went really well. It was with Joelle, and it was really interesting to just like, you know, listen and hear other people's thoughts about the process and training, or her thoughts. It was just her. And I did hold an empathy circle as well. And it was here where I live in Mexico, and there was Spanish speakers and English speakers. So that was some interesting challenges, like, as far as explaining. And I don't know if there was like the language barrier or whatnot, but it went well. But definitely is a work in progress.
Okay. Well, great. Rosie?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I had a great buddy call with Evelyn, and we basically we shared about our perspectives, and it was again a very good lesson in the focus and attention needed for active listening. And I also learned something important from Evelyn also around context, because we have about a 6-hour time difference, and it was late at night for her, mid-afternoon for me. So even our cognitive ability to listen it differs depending on, you know, where and when we're doing it. So also, yeah, just a good reminder for me to consider what might be going on for the other person when I'm communicating with them.
Thank you. Megan? Maggie. Say it again.
Maggie. Thanks,
Maggie.
Linda. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, happy to say I did have a nice buddy call. We were able to talk about my buddy's experiences. So she's been doing the empathy trainings for a while now, and so got to get a little bit of the backstory on how that's unfolded for her. And I didn't do any, I didn't hold any empathy circles in the last week. Still feeling very fresh like a newbie. So I'm just happy to, no real questions. I'm just happy to keep on going with this for now, and just really, really appreciating it.
I'm glad you came back, Maggie.
Yeah.
All right. Vincent? You're muted.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I have a great empathy buddy call with Kathleen, and I was very happy because she also works with schools and is interested in working with schools. So it was great on that side. Then I had an empathy circle with some colleagues, teachers, and we talked about how to bring empathy to schools, and it was pretty good. I was left with a question. I mean, we did great, I think, on perspective taking, on having these short summaries, but I don't know where the feelings start. I don't know about the feeling part of empathy.
The feel like the emotional part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, maybe the more experienced people will be able to answer when we get through with the intros. Donnie? Saddleback? Can we see you?
Good to see you too.
There you are.
So I've had a buddy call with Bill, and we talked about diversity and finding the common humanity within our circles. And we talked about how we needed to have empathy circles in our schools, and how we needed to transform kids at a young age into empathy. And being a special ed teacher and being a part of the special ed class, we needed to make sure we communicated empathy for everyone to be inclusive. Then we started talking about minority groups and marginalized groups, and how it was important for the Pride community to be talking about empathy, because a lot of the times they are stereotyped and prejudiced against, and we need to work on breaking those.
All right. Glad you had that opportunity. Alfred, if you can unmute.
I had a buddy call on Friday night with the illustrious Linda Bass. And it was very helpful. In fact, I love that it was us pairing up because we talked about the nuances of working with people of color or marginalized folks and approaches and then even perceptions and even the fact of the art of repeating back what someone says for someone not to say, that's what I just said. What are you doing here? Are you mocking me? And also for people who have spent their lifetime being explained to, this is what, people telling you what you just said. So it was very, very enlightening and thought-provoking. And a question I'll have later to the group will be, I haven't had a circle yet. I'm not circle ready, but I think I will be after today. But what info do I give people beforehand would be the question to put to the group for later. So thank you again, Linda, very much for the time you took on a Friday night.
I enjoyed it too. Okay, Melissa?
Yeah.
If we can
Hello.
see you,
Hi. Yeah. Hello. Thank you. So I did have a buddy call with Christine Carino, and it was very interesting. We just did a couple of listening and reflecting, but then after that, we got to speak to each other and to know each other better. We also came to know that we had some of our thoughts about the empathy circle were, the same, and we both are curious about how what we will learn going ahead, about how we don't just listen to somebody in empathy, but how do we empathize? How do we connect with them and give them to believe that truly care? So we both wanted to know more about what we're going to learn.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christine?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. It was really, Melissa, of course, had a buddy call with Melissa. It was great. It's amazing to me what's coming up. It's always about learning more, growth, and just seeing and experiencing people's point of view without centering yourself, basically. And also I did my my listening one with someone that I was supporting within like diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, and then the other one is someone that I am dating. So very interesting.
I bet that was interesting.
Interesting dynamic and experience. It's like work and fun. Cool. But yes, it does create that kind of connection. The feedback that I receive is basically, it's like it feels good. It's really good to get clarity. I wasn't even like intending to create that for them, but just sort of reflecting back and then hearing their thoughts, that gave that. And the other one is like, I'm like expressing myself fully, so
very good.
Ones that I got.
Very good. Great. Regina?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
You too. I was a little sick last week. I didn't get a chance to have a buddy call last week, but I facilitate a weekly group with a community-based organization, and we're going to dedicate one of our groups to it. And I did mention it to my family. I'm trying to schedule one with them. We had a family, it was my sister's birthday Saturday, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can get at least 4 of them to meet up this week and host a group. So
yes, families can be challenging. All right. Did I miss anyone? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Ira. I'm sorry. Yes, you unmute.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a body call with Anne, and it was a great one. And we discussed lots of issues ranging from COP26 attendance and the difficulties associated with that for people from Global South. And we also discussed about the challenges of Africans in terms of network connectivity for empathy circles. I also discussed with a couple of my friends to start empathy circle for Nigeria, SR group in Nigeria. So it was a great one, and I want to appreciate Anne for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think I got everybody.
Linda, did Sally get a chance to know?
Who?
Sally?
I don't see I don't see Sally.
I-
Sally, okay, I'm sorry.
I guess, yeah, I just have an iPhone. I didn't have an a buddy this week, but it was really exciting that my husband and I did our first real but well, I don't know what you call it, buddy call, but it wasn't, we were just eye to eye, and I don't know, we just all of a sudden my husband understood the fluidity of communicating in an empathy circle. And it was just so exciting to have that connection. And at the end, how he understood how calm we both were. And so it's very exciting.
Good. That's very good. Very good. All right. Very good. Melissa, did I get you? Have you, Fernandez?
Yes, I did speak. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. I'm looking at all the squares. I think I got everybody. Yes. If I didn't, please say something. Want to hear from you. And I apologize to everyone, every person whose name I messed up. That's just something that's a negative for me. All right. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to, is it Edwin?
It's Anne. She's doing the checking on the feedback.
Anne, okay.
You're muted, Anne.
Thank you. So each week Edwin sends out an email to all the participants, and in there's an opportunity, there's a link with an opportunity for you to fill in a feedback form, which is always gratefully received. So thank you for those of you that did it. Another element in that email, it will make clear to you what the homework is for the week, what your tasks are to do. So there was a question about how do you know what to do. So check for your email from Edwin within the first couple of days after this session, and you will get a chance to see who your buddy is, what the tasks are, and the opportunity to fill in for the feedback. Some of the questions from this week's feedback were about managing the turn taking in the room, and it is the job of a facilitator to manage that. And the normal way to do it will be to ensure that during the first round, nobody goes for a second time until everybody has had one turn, so that you've had one clear round. So what I would do would be to suggest that they can select between who hasn't yet had a turn until everybody's had a turn before moving on. And then after that, I would suggest that maybe you adopt a method. I personally do a tally chart. I have the names of the participants down, and I just tick in how many times they've facilitated, how many times they've listened, to make sure they have got equal turns. Otherwise, if I don't do that, it is difficult after 2-3 turns to keep track. So I suggest you have your pen and paper ready to do that, to help manage as facilitator. Another question was about interrupting advice. Instead of just people feeding back, they might come in with an advice, which isn't the way we do empathetic listening. And my suggestion would be just as people are learning for the very first time, to be a little bit flexible. But if it's happened more than once, I would interrupt and suggest that they don't do that, or make sure that the person's had a chance to have to listen to a reflection of what they've said without that kind of judgment or advice in there. There was another question which I wondered whether Edwin or Bill might be more able to pick up. What would you do if there was somebody was being threatened, or there was a threat of self-harm in the empathy circle? I feel I'm not probably the best person to answer that. Would anybody like to jump in of the other trainers on that one? Bill?
Sure. Well, I had to do that in my job. And so one of the things is that you can have suicide hotlines locally where you are, or you could probably go online even while you're speaking with the person, if they're not in your local area, and find some suicide hotlines and things like that. And the other thing is to do what we call a kind of a rough, quick assessment. And that would be to assess how specifically, like if somebody says, I feel like I'm killing myself or something like that, okay. And then, but do they have a plan? Do they say, well, I'm going to go and get the gun or something like that? If that's the case, that amps up the red flags. So that means that this is that much more serious. And then the way to possibly, if you can, is to get a no harm sort of agreement, a verbal agreement not to harm yourself. And you might want to have a follow-up call. So know the resources in your area. Try to have some resources in wherever they are, if they're not in your local area, and then try to assess the seriousness, and then try to have a no harm contract, and then follow up. Like, I'll be talking to you tomorrow, so that you start to, that's it.
Thanks very much, Bill.
I'd like to add something to that. So
yes, Lou.
I think that, if a person is in distress, whether they're very angry or whether they are desperate and considering suicide, being listened to will help them. So if I'm in a situation like that, I try to hold what they're saying within the circle and have it reflected back and go on. Now, if by the end of the circle they have not shifted, and I'm still worried about them, like they still seem very charged or very desperate, then I invite them to stay afterwards and have a conversation with them about mental health, what Bill is saying, mental health in the area, resources that they can avail themselves of. But being listened to will help people in both of those kind of circumstances.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lou. I too have experienced, as Lou has, that during the circle, by people being able to express themselves and be listened to and hear a reflection back, there is frequently a kind of calming down and a sort of a settling, which enables people to move on quite often. There was another question which was about if there was any racial or racist or hurtful comments being made in somebody's turn. And I think, again, it is appropriate for you to step in and interrupt it, and a reminder that we are of our values in the circle. Especially if it's directed at anybody within the circle. But sometimes people can, again, be kind of settling down, and by being listened to, things shift and change in how they want to speak. Okay.
So I feel compelled to add something to that too. If
Yeah,
that's
please
all right.
do.
So I think that's a very complicated situation, question, and we can't really address it fully in the few minutes that we're doing here. It is the rule of the circle that when it's your turn to speak, you can say whatever you want. That is the rule of the circle. And if people say things that are, and so there is a risk that you will be in a circle where people will say things that are upsetting to someone in the circle. And my experience is that if those things are reflected back and the structure of the circle is held, that shifts happen. And that actually is the purpose of the circle. So in that way, the circle is a brave space rather than a safe space. Like you're not safe from hearing things that you might not want to hear. Yeah. But this has been a point of discussion because people do bring it up. Like, what if someone says something racist, you know? So I don't think I want to say more about it now, but you know, maybe we can come back to this later in the training for a longer discussion about it, because it is a complex situation.
I'd like to say something. And I'd like to say that in both of the last cases that were mentioned, when somebody is in great emotional distress, or this other situation where somebody's making remarks that are very alarming, one of the issues will be that some of the other people in the circle may want to say something. And so it will be about managing and keeping the structure of the circle. So I've seen one of those happen, and everybody wants to jump in and help, or everybody wants to jump in and say their opinion. And so that's a moment where the facilitator is going to want to intervene, I think. That's it.
Okay.
Before we go into discussion, the feedback section is a 5-minute, just a quick, it's not sort of a discussion area. You can bring up all these topics in the circle itself, which is a great place to talk about these. And I want to keep us on track because we do need to introduce the next section and then get into the circle and talk about anything that's coming up on your mind here would be great.
Well,
So,
Edwin,
yeah.
the questions that we had 3 questions raised during the intro, will they be answered at the end when we debrief?
We can, we can't answer all the questions just because of the time, but we'll try to bring them in on the end and also kind of note those too for maybe even the next session.
Okay.
So next, you complete, and we just need to move on. We're already at the 10:30.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there are other questions that people haven't, and the circle's a great place to do it. So
yeah, bring up all those topics in the circle. It's a perfect place to discuss. So where are we at? Ralph? Yeah.
Well, this has been very enjoyable. I've learned a lot, and looking forward, like you, to learning more. This is where empathy meets the road, or the heart. Oh, are you okay? Okay, somebody signaled something. So we're going to go into our breakout groups. Everybody will have time to practice facilitating a mini empathy circle. And I want you to imagine that the context is that you are facilitating an empathy circle with people who are not familiar with the practice. So the way it'll go is that the first participant will introduce the topic. I have the topic says, what are your thoughts and concerns about being an empathy circle facilitator and whatever is alive for you? We're going to go in 3-minute rounds. Facilitator will go first, and we'll end with feedback, short feedback from our participants. And we'll go through in order and see how many rounds we get in. Is that about it?
Yeah.
Edwin?
Yeah, Bill's got something.
Yeah, we were practicing the how-to as well. You're practicing the explanation. And I was looking at the script, I just didn't see it there. So just to make that clear, will be practicing the explanation. You explain to people how to do the mechanics of the empathy circle. You'll have about 5 minutes for that each.
Right. I thought that was introducing the practice, but very good.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to go into the breakout room. Some of the group rooms there'll be one trainee who will sort of guide the overall process, and each one will have a trainer who kind of supports that person, and then there'll be the participants who are actually doing the facilitation, the mini empathy circles. And some of the groups have three participants and some have 2. So if you're in a group with just 2 participants, you get half the time. And I'll give a 15-minute heads up before the session closes. We're going to be there for about an hour and a half in the breakout circle, and then we'll come back. So
Anne had something.
Oh, yeah.
And I suggest that during that hour and a half, the facilitator does arrange that there is a very quick break for a minute or 2 when is convenient for them.
For a little bio break or so, yeah. Okay, here we go into the rooms. Yeah. Oh, I forgot again to push that one button. Okay, Adeline, this is your room here, and we're in the weight room. So if people drop out, they'll be coming back through this room. Just to let you know. So I'll be kind of handling that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi everybody. So today we are going to practice our how-to introductions, and we have about 1 hour and a half. This will mean that we will split, let's say around 20 minutes for 25 minutes for each, something like this. So you have 5 minutes for introduction and 1-2 minutes for the feedback after your introduction. Then you will continue with facilitation. So probably it's going to be something like 5 minutes plus 20 minutes the facilitation, 3 minutes for your for the turns, so that it's easier for you. And whenever you are ready, if anybody of you wants to start doing the how-to introduction, let us know and we can begin. Just imagine that it's the first time you're doing it for people that have never been introduced till now with the empathy circles. And if you have any questions before starting, let us know.
Adelina, can I ask a question?
Yep.
So just to clarify, so each of us are going to take turns practicing being a facilitator.
Yes.
And we're facilitating all 5 of us in this group.
Only the 3 of you that are, you are the participants. So we are going to do the full circle, but the 3 of you will be the facilitators.
Okay, got it.
We're all participants. I'm a participant in the circle.
Yes.
We're all, you can call in any of us if that's what you mean. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And as a facilitator, you should be the first listener.
I would be the first listener. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
okay, well, I will, I'm not ready, but I will go first. Okay, so that includes the explanation, right? Okay, so welcome everybody to our empathy circle. We're so glad that you could join us. I am Rosie. I'll be your facilitator for today. And before we get started, I'll just spend a little bit of time explaining how the empathy circle works. So there are a few roles in our empathy circle. So I will be the facilitator, and my role is to explain about the empathy circle and get us started and sort of guide the conversation. But I won't be interjecting or participating other than in the listener speaker role unless I see something that needs to kind of get back on track. And then another role would be the speaker. So whoever is speaking, and we'll each take turns, gets 3 minutes today to share. And we're going to be sharing about either any concerns or thoughts we have about being an empathy circle facilitator or whatever is most alive for you right now. And during that 3 minutes, the speaker will also have a dedicated active listener. And the listener's role is to obviously listen to what the speaker is saying, but to also reflect back to the speaker what they're hearing the speaker say. And it would be helpful to the listener for the speaker to speak in sort of short chunks so that the listener can remember and be able to reflect back. So are there any questions before we get going in our circle today? Oh, everybody's good.
What should I do if it's not my turn to speak?
Okay. Thank you. That's a really good question, Evelina. So then if you're not a speaker or a listener in that round, then you are an observer. So you're also listening. You will not be reflecting back live, but you're certainly welcome to, when it's your turn to speak, comment or respond to anything that you heard. So we're all listening to each other, but the active listener is doing reflecting. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, so is there someone who would like to volunteer? So as the facilitator, I'll be the first listener. So I will hopefully give you a sense of what it looks like to do the reflecting. Oh, yes, Adelina.
Yeah, just one question, and this one is actually to Edwin. Should we do the feedback now or after the facilitation ends?
I would do it afterwards.
Okay.
That's sort of the approach I usually use. Sometimes they do it like right after, but I would say do it after, but it's kind of your call too.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do it after then. I like it better like this also.
Okay. I forgot to mention that as facilitator, I will also be keeping time. So I will try not to interrupt anybody, but we will have 3-minute turns, and to try to give everybody a chance to speak, we're going to really try and stick to this 3 minutes. So I'll keep an eye on the time. And if you're getting close to or at time, I'll just I'll raise up. No, sorry. I'll raise up my hand so that you can see that. And then that would be then the speaker's turn to just wrap up whatever it is that you're saying, finish that thought. The listener will reflect back, and then we will move on to the next person. And whoever was speaking gets to, whoever's listening. No, sorry. Whoever was speaking gets to choose the next speaker. Is that right, Adelina? Sorry. Yes. Okay. Whoever was speaking gets to choose the next speaker. Okay. So is there anyone
Actually,
who
the listener speaks.
Sorry, it is the
Yeah.
listener. Okay.
So
whoever's the listener becomes the speaker and gets
And
to choose
chooses
the
the
next
next
listener. Yes. Yes. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to speak first, and I will be your active listener? Yes, Vincent.
Okay, so my thoughts about the circle, facilitating circles. So I found, when I facilitated my first circle, I found it, there was like an easy flow. So yeah, it was kind of easy, and at the same time, my participants were very polite, and I was a little concerned that they were speaking a lot from here to here. So there was like no emotion there. But we were talking about, sorry.
Oh, Vincent, sorry. So may I ask you to pause? Okay, thank you. So your thoughts were that the first circle you were in was very easy flow and smooth and very active participants. But it sounds like you had but you noted that people seem to be speaking maybe from the head and not so much from the heart. Did I hear you right?
Yeah. And still we were talking about how to bring empathy to schools. So it was kind of a technical theme anyways. So maybe it was the theme. So when I hear that people threaten to kill themselves, and I think that could happen in my circle. I mean, I was a little confused about that.
So I hear that you're saying what maybe it was sort of head discussion because it was talking about schools and perhaps a bit technical in nature, but you were maybe taken aback when they started talking about people committing suicide, and you just weren't expecting that and what to do with that in the circle.
Yeah, well, the thing is that to me, empathy is not just paraphrasing. It's not just summarizing. It goes beyond that. So, and if I want to use that in schools, I'm mainly interested in students sharing feelings or experiences. And I don't know exactly what questions could I use for that.
Okay, so I hear you saying that if you want to use this in schools where you work, that empathy goes beyond repeating or paraphrasing what the other person is saying, and you really want to get students to share their feelings, but you're not sure what questions to use to bring that.
Yeah, it's a technical doubt. It's or even if I change the question, if I do like a circle, let's say every week. So if I need to change the question, or if I use the same question, so maybe it's just small stuff that will be cleared afterwards.
Okay, so I hear you saying that it's a bit of a technical question for you, and you're wondering or hoping that you will end up learning this in the coming weeks, but it is something that you'd really like to learn. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was our 3 minutes. Did I hear you well, Vincent?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Vincent, for sharing. Now it is my turn as the listener to speak. And I would like to invite Adelina to be my active listener.
Sure thing.
Okay, so I'm just going to run the timer. Okay. So right now I'm feeling very anxious as a practice facilitator and already thinking of all the stuff I forgot to say at the beginning.
So what I'm hearing is that you feel a little bit anxious. You're nervous about your role as a facilitator and the fact that you already have in mind everything that you've forgotten to say in the beginning.
Yes, exactly. And I actually have similar questions maybe as Vincent does around, how, if we're speaking and then repeating back to each other, I think that is great for practicing listening. But when it comes to some very controversial topics, which is probably what I will have to facilitate, how does this format allow for debate?
So you're wondering how the empathy circles would work in a more conflictual space, so in a debate, let's say, when more controversial topics would be up there in here. So.
Yes, exactly. For example, I watched the Empathy Circle online about abortion, and I heard people stating their views when it was their turn to speak, but it didn't seem like there was as much opportunity for people to respond back to the speakers on their points because of the format of the circle.
I heard you said you watched an empathy circle about abortion, and it felt like it was not a continuous flow in the discussion. It was more like they were bringing up their own perspectives, but there was nothing around a response to what others have said previously.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I also recognize that our format means some people, if they get chosen to be the listener more often, they get to speak more often. And so it's up to people in the circle to try to give everyone an equal turn, but not everyone might get the chance to say what they want to say.
So you're thinking about how it might be difficult in terms of some people might choose others to speak more, to be their listeners more, and therefore they would be speaking more. And you're thinking about how to offer everybody the same opportunity of sharing their thoughts.
Yes, that's right. And that's my time. And I thank you, Adelina, for listening. I feel heard.
You're welcome. Christine, would you be my listener?
Absolutely.
So I was thinking about what both of you have brought up here, and especially this question regarding how it is to have only some people speaking there. being chosen as listeners, and then only them speaking. So this is where the role of the facilitators starts, because as a facilitator, you would suggest people to choose somebody else who has not been a listener so far, or who has not spoken like this, because if in the introduction we and I will stop here, sorry, because
Thank you. I was like, okay, wait, the capacity to hold all that. What I hear you say is that given that there will be instances that speakers, the turns could not be even, the facilitator's task is to make sure to moderate that.
Exactly. Yeah, so as a facilitator, you can suggest people to choose somebody who has not been a listener so far, and especially in the first round, because usually that's where it might happen more often.
Mhm. And you're saying that especially in the first round where it could possibly happen.
Yeah, people might be prone to choose the same the same
Right.
listener in the first round, because they're still not very used with the dynamic, with the structure of the empathy circle.
Mm-hmm. And people, because of the process, the unfamiliar process that people go through, participants tend to choose who they're familiar with or comfortable with.
Yeah. I'm not very sure if I still have time, but I will add just something regarding the fact that sometimes it feels like the empathy circle comes from up here and not that much feeling. But I think that with experience, and at least this is what I noticed so far, that with experience and people getting more accustomed to the structure of the empathy circle, it will come easier to access their emotions as well. And also it depends on everybody's openness.
Right. And what you're saying is that the heart conversation or the feeling conversation with an empathy circle could possibly happen through experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
I feel heard.
You feel heard. Okay, great. Edwin, would you be
Yeah.
my listener?
Listening.
You know, with what I've been hearing from all the participants and about the structure and the process, I think that Delina mentioned a great point. It takes some getting used to pick up on emotions, especially when we're not actually very familiar on the language, even naming our own emotions. So
So you think Adelina has a good point about getting more comfortable first with the empathy circle, and because a lot of people can't even name their own emotions, so you're kind of giving space for that.
right, exactly. And it takes like a deeper sense of listening for the listener to actually reflect an emotion. I mean, as a coach, that's something that we do. We say, I hear you're upset. Is that accurate? Right? It's like there's that. You name it, so they're fully aware. But for like, I can pause.
Yeah, so you're a coach and you've done listening, and you can listen a little bit deeper because you've got you might check, are you feeling this? So that's what you might do as a coach, but not
Yeah.
everybody sort of has those skills or that that sensibility.
Right. Or not everyone is even willing to go that deep, or have the capacity to hold a challenging emotion even. My question for right now is it less important without the emotion, or is it's incredibly important altogether? And the answer is, yeah, all of it brings value in some way or form,
So you feel that everything that you do brings some kind of value. Is it important to have the emotions? And yes, that does bring value.
Or just even without the emotion,
Oh,
you're not if you're not able to reflect
yeah,
the
if people are just
emotion.
hearing each other, that's already has some kind of a value, even if it's not very emotional. So giving
Right.
everything value, everything people do has value.
Yeah, and it takes time of getting used to. It takes time of really being comfortable even with our own emotions, and having vocabulary around it too, like the language, right? It's not just I'm upset, I'm angry. It's like I'm disappointed. There's like texture in it, and then they go deep into what it means.
Yeah, there's real learning in terms of going deeper into the subtleties of the feelings and the needs there. So it takes some learning. And that was the time too. I saw Rosie held up a time.
I
Or if you
didn't
saw that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel heard, Edwin.
Okay, I'll speak to Vincent. Yeah, so I had made some notes here. Yeah, in terms of people speaking from emotions, people were talking about that. I think the important thing is just to develop trust. As people develop trust, they know that they'll be heard in the circle. So the emotions start rising from that trust. So even if it's from the head, you just know, oh, people will hear me, so I can go deeper. So it is really about building that trust, and not let's push, be emotional, be emotional. It's like, let's build some trust and let people sort of emerge without any sort of pressure.
Yeah, so it's about trust. It's about trust. So you need to work more on trust rather than on like pushing people to be more emotional. And when there is trust, emotion will probably emerge if it needs to.
Yeah, and there can be topics too that kind of help with the emotional part. For example, one that I find is like, what are concerns you're dealing with in your life, right? So that brings up concerns, anxieties, fears. And so you sort of frame that question, and the question can help, sort of facilitate that too.
Yeah, so the question also is very important. So if you ask about concerns, people will talk about their lives, what they are worried about.
And joys, maybe not starting with the worst, feelings, but start with what's some real joys in your life? What's some really positive thing that's happened? So they'll talk about kind of beautiful emotions, so sometimes it's good to start with that too.
Sorry. Yeah, or rather start with joys, with positive things rather than with like difficult things. It's probably better to start with positive.
And the other question that came up was about controversial topics. So the empathy circle is really good for those controversial topics, because when people just start feeling heard, it's like it helps, a controversial topic is like a big Gordian knot, right? And then with the empathy circle, you slowly open and unpack, like with that abortion topic. There was a lot of real deep sharing, I thought, and I remember that one. And so it's the empathy circle, I think, is a great first step, for any kind of conflict or challenging topics. Yeah.
Yeah, so the structure provided by empathy circles is especially adequate for this kind of controversial conversations, because these are like Gordian knots. So they are complicated. You need to knot it slowly. So it provides this.
And again, the trust gets built. It's like, oh, somebody's going to hear me. I'm not going to be interrupted. I'm going to be heard. So a lot of times the conflict is like a lack of trust. That's my time. So again, it's trust building, knowing that you'll be heard is it really helps with that.
Yeah, and also it builds trust because you are going to be heard. So that in itself creates this trust.
Yep, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
One now, sorry.
Oh,
Should I? Because I'm not sure.
I think for the time, Adelina, it's almost half an hour, so we probably should do the
Yeah.
debrief.
Yeah, let's do the debrief. Do you have any feedback for Rosie and her how-to introduction, her facilitation skills?
You may start with Rosie and say, Rosie, how was it for you?
Yeah.
So just since she let her get started.
I definitely think I could have prepared more and at least like even just written down the key bullet points, which I didn't do. But as I was going, it's like, oh, right, and this, oh, right, and this. So that's my main takeaway. I wonder, yeah, other than that, actually it felt good going through it and very also good because I think the people who are in this group have been in it before. So I've kind of also made a mental note that if this was everybody's first time, it may not have gone as smoothly. So I was kind of fortunate that I didn't have to interject or guide anybody in any particular way. Something that I felt, what I expected to feel was the challenge of paying attention so much. So trying to listen to people's conversations and keep track of time and think about, okay, who might go next? And is there anybody I need to watch out for? And just trying to take care of everybody, but also organize. That felt a little bit stressful.
So it was a little bit stressful with organizing and listening to everybody, seeing whose turn it is. And also the fact that you were thinking about the bullet points that you felt like you needed to prepare a little bit more. But it was at least from my side, it was really I loved listening to you. You felt confident, and I appreciated the way you introduced yourself as a facilitator and how you remembered in the end to say that you will also keep the time. There was one thing that you noticed my question regarding the silent listeners. So that was something that maybe I would have added just to be sure that you point the role of the silent listener as well. And maybe one thing that I like to usually do is to say a few words about what the Empathy Circle is, its goal, or why we are gathered here. But that's just an idea. So yeah, I think that more or less this is. But I really loved. It felt like it just, even though you did not, you're saying that you did not prepare it too much, it did not feel like it.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Do you have any feedback for her, Vincent, Christine?
Rosie, I think that was incredible, actually. You were clear. You were welcoming. I felt safe. Those are like really good points as a facilitator, or good things to have, I guess. Yeah, it was great overall. And the ones that's missing, I guess, is just like the pause. I think you didn't include the please pause. It's like that important part. That's why I guess who was the one talking earlier that just kept on going. It's like, oh, that one needed like that one needed a primer. But yeah, overall it was great. Thank you for modeling for us.
Thank you, Christine. That means a lot.
No, I thought you were reading it. I mean, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but in a good way. I thought you had that thoroughly prepared. Yeah, I thought, oh, I didn't prepare that well. So I did like it very much. Something that I personally tend to add is maybe use gestures, but that maybe is just because I'm Mediterranean. So I tend to use gestures a lot, like saying someone will speak and someone will listen. You know, I tend to use, but sorry, that doesn't mean this is necessary. Of course, of course. I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yeah. And I also noticed what Adelina said. Yeah, I probably would have said something around the purpose of the empathy circle. Like we are here to express yourselves well, and so on. So stuff like that. And then how we are going to do this. But I thought it was great. Yeah, I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Vincent.
I'll jump in. Yeah, it was very clear at the beginning. It was like, oh, this feels really good. It was very sort of effervescent and clear. And so I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. So a couple of things is one, there was a PDF. I don't know if you all had a chance to print that out, but that kind of covers a lot of the points, you know. And then in terms of the pausing, one thing I have is the sign here, remember to pause. So sometime instead of like interrupting, I'll just sort of say, remember to pause if they're going on. And yeah, so those are just a couple of little tips. So otherwise, yeah, it was just everything felt quite clear. And there's always, like every time I present, it's a little bit different and I always forget something, but somehow the structure kind of, you know, holds itself too. So yeah.
That's a good tip, Edwin. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your suggestions. That very helpful. And thank you just for making me feel safe as a facilitator.
Thank you, Rosie. Okay, so who would like to be next in facilitating and doing the introduction? Christine, Vincent?
Well, since you called my name, I should just go.
Okay.
But right, I think I still have battery life. Yeah, 16%. We're gonna make it through. Okay. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our Empathy Circle Cafe. So the mission of Empathy Circles is to basically train 1 million people in the world to create a better a space for everyone to be heard and included. And we are going to wait. So how does this work? We are going to be in a breakout room where everyone is going to have a chance to speak, and everyone is or let me tell the rules. Okay, wait. Let me do it again. Let's talk about the rules. So there will be a speaker, an active listener, and also a silent listener. As a speaker, you are allowed to share whatever is alive for you as freely as you want it to be. And the person that you select to be your active listener will listen with intent and reflect back. And the other participants in the room will be the silent listeners. And things to remember as a speaker, please pause as often as you can so the listener would have the chance to reflect back with accuracy. As a silent listener, please, of course, do not interrupt throughout the process. And I think that's basically it. Okay. So, you have 3 to 5 minutes. Is it 5 minutes? Sorry, 5 minutes? 3 minutes. Every speaker has a 3-minute turn to speak. And once it's time, I will keep time and let you know once it's time the time's done. That okay, awesome. So let me just okay. Who would like to go first? I will be your active listener.
I can go first.
Go ahead, Rosie, we're here.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited after listening to everyone's comments and Adelina and Edwin's responses too about how the empathy circles can help in difficult conversations. I'm really excited to practice this in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard you say, based from what you heard within challenging conversations, you're now excited to facilitate this or continue to do it in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm still thinking through how it can, I guess, how to have the empathy circle conversations when I was listening to the abortion one as an example, I kept wanting to respond. Like somebody would say something and I'd be like, oh, I have a point I want to make about that. But if I was in the circle, it might not have been my turn. And so, yeah, I was still wondering, okay, how do we incorporate that?
Mm-hmm. But you're so curious to know how to incorporate, how to welcome responses in the middle of the session, and incorporate that within empathy listening.
Yes. Maybe a little clarification I can make on what I said is that I could see that if it was me, there would be something I might want to respond to somebody who might make a point. Let's say I disagree with, I might want to respond to that. But then if it's not my turn to speak, by the time it gets to my turn, there might be something else I want to say, or there might be so many points raised that I don't have enough time in 3 minutes to respond to them all.
Right. So what I hear you say is that because everyone gets, because it's a turn that you have to wait for your own turn, you may or may not be able to hold space for all these conversations, the multiple conversations, and to respond to it.
Yes, exactly. And I see the benefit, like the point of the empathy circle, I see as it isn't just about you trying to argue or respond back. It is actually forcing you to slow down and listen to what other people are saying.
Mm-hmm. And you're now getting it that it's not, or the meaning that for you is to listen with intent and not to debate or respond.
Yes. At the same time, I also see that it's almost my time up, and that I think there might be a need, just a need for people to want to reply, but they may not have a chance to do that in this format.
Mm-hmm. And you see that there can be a missing chance for people to respond, but not be able to because of the format.
Yes, exactly. I feel well heard. Thank you, Christine.
Of course. Adelina, would you listen to me?
Of course.
Thank you. I mean, Rosie really bring up such a great point around the responses at doing this empathy circle. And I've been asking this question. It's like, empathy really means to be in someone else's shoes, to be in their experience, to be held. And that's, sorry.
So it seems like what Rosie brought up, it's something that you are thinking of yourself in terms of being empathy means being in somebody else's shoes, putting yourself into their experience.
Right. But it's not solution focused. It's not, it's meant for us to, I feel, sorry, let me just say that again. It feels like it's meant for us to tap into our humanity, but not solve.
So it's like you're with empathy, you're trying to be more in touch with your own humanity, but it's not the response or the solution to all the problems that we are facing.
Right. It's not, yes, it's not to it's part of a solution, I guess, but it's not the driver to create a solution.
So it is part of the solution, but it's not the things that the thing that actually drives the main focus, or it's not the main answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you feel.
Yeah. Again, it's still very such a very important skill. It's something that we have not been trained in, you know. And it increases emotional intelligence. It really allows us to create deeper connection, deeper meaning. I mean, I was able to facilitate it for work and also for personal. So and I got both. It's still like I trust you. I am connected to you. I feel this. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that you understand all of the benefits that empathy has in terms of how it helps you connect better, and you're giving yourself as an example when it comes to doing the empathy circles at work and with your partner, and also you're thinking about how it helps building trust and improve relationships. But it's still like what's bugging is that it's not the solution. I'm not very sure if it's bugging or not, but that's what came to me.
Yeah, that's present. Thank you. Thank you, Adelina. I feel heard.
You're welcome. Vincent, will you be my listener? Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's I can relate with what you're saying, Christine, because yeah, sometimes it may not feel like empathy is the solution. But on the other hand, I really feel like, and probably the reason why I'm here is that I believe that with more empathy in the world, we could do so much better, and we could improve our relationships and have a better life.
So even with some doubts, sometimes you feel that empathy really can help people and the world a lot.
And I've seen this. I've been also participating in some empathy circles that have been organized by another trainer, Russia, Edwin knows her, and those were international, just like this is as well. But it was more focused on some subjects, some themes, something that appears, and they're more personal, and it actually gets emotional, like you were asking yourself, Vincent, about if this is possible or it just stays in the rational.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood correctly.
Okay,
I heard you say that you participated in other circles, and there the topics were kind of technical. So, but I'm not sure if you said that even though that happens, that happened. There was emotional emerging. I'm not sure I understood. Sorry.
So it's not a problem. They weren't technical. They were actually topics like what's your superpower, or they were actually very personal. And the discussions became very, very emotional, and you could see how people were able to go very deep, even though it was in this time frame of 3-5 minutes. And the way the conversation went, it really it was like a river, it just
Yeah. So sometimes I mean there are some questions that may trigger or may foster more emotionality and more like going deeper in a short time.
Yeah, so I think that this is what's important for me when it comes to empathy, to know that it creates a safe space for me to explore my feelings, and I'm gonna stop here.
So yeah, so that's the important thing, that this kind of circle creates a safe space. Okay, how about you, Edwin?
Listening.
Are you on board? Okay, good. So yeah, when I heard Rosie, I thought, yeah, one of my participants said, I'm really controlling myself not to intervene, but she did control herself. So that was good. That was good. Yeah, and I was thinking that as I'm planning to bring these circles mostly to students are generally very easy audience, very easy participants, because they don't know anything. I mean, in a way, I mean, they sorry.
Yeah, so you're going to bring this to students, and you feel that they're an easy audience because they just don't know a lot. And I think there was something else about what Rosie was saying, that someone mentioned that they were having to control themselves and not to interrupt. And so you just sort of had noticed that too.
Yeah, and I forgot when I did my introduction. I think I didn't mention that, but they knew that they were supposed to behave. So yeah, so when I think of students, yeah, I'm thinking about maybe doing. I've talked about this with Bill, and he told me about starting small and me being the listener first and so forth. But also I'm envisioning just showing them like with puppets and stuff. So and generally students of all ages are pretty good with just following directions, while adults generally have so many interesting ideas.
So you're thinking of how you bring this in with the students, and you're sort of thinking of different approaches, and that the students are pretty open. You're thinking that they'll follow directions more so than adults.
Yeah, it comes to me, a restorative circle I facilitated a few years ago, and there were parents and students, and those students were like this with the parents, because the parents were crazy interrupting, and the student was saying, weren't we supposed to just take turns to speak? And the parents were listening.
Yeah, so the students were willing to stick with the rules, to listen, take turns, whereas the parents weren't. And the students were wondering, like, what's going on? The parents aren't following the rules. And they're like, it's surprise.
Yeah, that's the usual thing. Yes. And also something I noticed when I was facilitating my circle was that I had some difficulty with being present and keeping time. I mean, and keeping an eye on the timer. That was a little painful. I mean, not big, but I noticed that my presence suffered.
Yeah, you're noticing that, being a facilitator and watching the time, that it takes some of your presence away.
Yeah. So, but I guess I will get used to that. Yeah. And what you said, Edwin, was useful. The thing you said about the questions. Yeah. Some questions, yeah, you take you quickly through personal spaces, and people can connect, like, because otherwise, like right now, okay, just one last thing. Right now, I mean, the conversation is the kind of conversation I had with my circle, very technical.
Yeah, so you feel the conversation is kind of technical right now, and that's what happened in your circle too. And you're seeing the importance of a good question to bring up more emotions, which sounds like you really want to get into is those feelings.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll speak to Rosie.
All right, I'm listening, Edwin.
Okay, let's see. There was something about dealing with controversial topics, debate, I think you'd said. So again, with the empathy circle, it's having enough time for it for the conversation, for conflict. It takes, it's good to have a couple hours for that. And when I do conflict mediation, I always say minimum of 3 hours, because for all things to sort of unwind, if there's, people are actually conflict. So the time is another factor. It's just having time for it to start getting some clarity, understanding.
Sorry. So I hear you saying that on the topic about discussing controversial topics in an empathy circle, time is a really important factor, and it's critical to allow enough time, in your opinion, a minimum 3 hours for topics that are particularly polarizing.
For a conflict, especially if it's a personal conflict, is important. And the other part is that with the empathy circle, you're getting mutual understanding, right? We're getting mutual understanding, seeing what impact, what is the meaning behind the conflict or the disagreements. But then there comes a point where people start understanding each other, and almost naturally, this question comes up is, what do we do now? And the facilitator can set that question, like after an hour or two, say, well, what do we do now? And that sort of reframes the direction of the circle towards solution and kind of collaboration.
Okay, so I hear you saying that, especially in issues of personal conflict, we need a lot of time to discuss, and that the flow of the conversation, when you have enough time, it can take a sort of a natural turn from first understanding what's underlying each other's opinions and the issue to what do we do now? And that's a role that the facilitator can play as well.
Yeah, and then at that point, there's something I call a restorative empathy circle, which is similar to restorative circles, what Vince mentioned, is that with the conflict, you kind of explore the conflict, understand why everybody's in the, what they feel about it, what their experiences about it, why the conflict happened. But then once there's that understanding, you go into negotiating an agreement of how do we go forward. And again, the empathy is important for negotiating those agreements, like, coming up with some solutions. You can't just impose a solution. Each side has to talk about what it is and like what they're going to offer, what they're asking for, and they sort of negotiate. So that's more of the conflict resolution aspect and the problem solving. I think that was my time.
So I hear you say that there's sort of like the initial part of the empathy circle could be sort of about understanding each other's emotions and really giving an outlet for that. And then there's what you called a restorative empathy circle, where that still based in empathy, but that gives room or space for the solutions-based aspect.
Feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we would have the feedback for Christine. So Christine, how was it facilitating the group? How was the experience for you and to do the introduction?
The intro was not up to par. Definitely didn't prepare for it, but I just tried to remember the roles and the task. I don't think that I was super clear saying it, and I was in my head for sure. Though the turns eventually just I got into it, I guess. So yeah.
I could see you were a little bit nervous in the beginning, but I think that you managed to get the main points of what the empathy circle is. I liked how you said that you want to teach 1 billion people how to be more empathic and all that. Yeah, I think that more or less you managed to cover everything. When it comes to facilitation, I would maybe suggest to have a sign for the time or something more visible, because raising, I liked how you were raising one finger, but yeah, it looked like
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
sometimes have something just written, something scribbled, and I just put it very close to the camera so that
And
the
also, it
people
sounds aggressive. Like, it seems aggressive. It's like, what should I do? Let's do the finger.
Another
Sorry.
tip would be maybe to unmute yourself just when it starts ringing, so that they hear the sound, and then if it goes after, you can come with a sign. So maybe
Okay.
could be an idea. I don't know.
Yeah, that's noted. The script, though, I do want to ask this: is there a script that we can follow?
The PDF that Edwin was showing earlier.
Ah, yeah, that was the one that I was looking, but I was like, wait, do I say all of these? But I
You
promise to prepare
in
next
time
time.
in time you will manage to see how what fits you best. So
Right. Thank you. It's the analyzer in me.
okay, so the others, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, when I was watching you, I thought, she's not remembering me, but I mean, I feel that, but then she's just stopping and coming back and coming back. So I did like that, because I thought, I hope she doesn't freeze. Sorry, I was thinking that, but you didn't. You just went on. So I think that went pretty good in that way. So yeah, I
Thank
like
you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, Christine, I found that you're very genuine and very human and relatable. So from that, I felt the connection is like, okay, I feel welcome here. Like Adelina, I could see that it felt like you were nervous at the beginning as well, but you called yourself an analyzer. And actually, I saw that in you as a facilitator and when you're speaking, that you were really thinking through what you were wanting to say before you said it. And I really appreciate that, actually, the thoughtfulness of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that it sounds like it looked like I could see you looking, oh, what do I say? So you're kind of looking for for what to say, but, feel free to use the handout and just read through the handout the first few times, because it's sort of a checklist. We also need a better checklist, I think, like a web page that has just a checklist you can check off. And what I do is beforehand, I do like sometimes send this out to people. I say, oh, here's this checklist. And I say, you can review this, have this handy. And then, as you'll see the speaker tips, pause often. When you're done talking, you can say, I feel fully heard. So you can just kind of read it off the first several times till you get sort of comfortable with it and don't feel
Right.
bad that you have to have it all memorized, so.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah.
So Vincent, you're the last one.
Really? And you're going to do
yeah.
it? No, just kidding, just kidding. So, hi, so welcome. I'm so glad you're here for this circle. So for this empathy circle, I'd like you to imagine like we are in a circle. We are sitting in a circle, and everyone will have an opportunity to speak, to talk about what they think, how they feel, and to be listened, which is also very important. In this circle, the topic is I'm going to read the topic. Well, whatever. It's about what are our thoughts about and concerns about being an empathy circle facilitator. And to talk about this topic, we have a number of roles here. So because we are not going to talk everyone at the same time. So I'd like to have you to have like a speaker. There's going to be a speaker. Well, I'm the facilitator and I'm not going to do much, but I'm going to a few things. For example, explain this. So you're going to have like a speaker and an active listener, and all the other people are silent listeners. So the speaker once has the the turn. The speaker will talk, and we'll have up to 3 minutes to say whatever comes to their mind about the topic or other things that comes to their mind. And I like the speaker to do small pauses. So because we have the active listener, and the active listener is a person who will summarize in their own words what he or she is listening. So the speaker will say something for a short time, and the listener will say, so I heard this and this. And the silent listeners just will keep track of what's happening. They will listen. Myself as a facilitator just will take the time. I mean, I'll check, I will I will have my stopwatch here. So, and when the 3 minutes are up, I'll show you this sign. It says temps in my language. And so, and then you can finish your sentence. And I mean, no rush, but more or less just start finishing. I think it's pretty much it. So, who'd like to start?
Sure, I can start if nobody else wants to go. Oh, sorry, Christine, did you want to go?
No. Go ahead, Rosie.
So, Vincenz, will you be my listener?
Definitely. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on what has all been said so far, and I actually really liked something Christine said last round about how the empathy circle isn't necessarily about finding a solution. It is about sharing our emotions and being empathetic.
So you're mulling over what was said, and you did like what Christine said about sharing.
Yes, and that it's not a I guess the main purpose isn't necessarily to solve the problem. It's to discuss the problem.
Yeah. So sorry, I forgot that. Yes, that the main purpose is not like to solve the problem, just to talk about the problem and to share feelings and ideas.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about what you had mentioned, Vincenz, about that this is sort of a technical discussion, or so far you've experienced technical discussions. And it's funny because I feel it's the opposite for me, where my previous empathy circles were very personal and emotional, and I was missing the how-to discussion.
So yeah. So you find it interesting that I was like looking forward for some emotion, and you were like looking forward for some how-to, and you are getting this now.
Yes, exactly. And I, hearing Edwin share about, 3 hours minimum to have a conflict or discussion about conflict, or discussion where there's conflict, was very eye-opening for me, because I've only experienced these sort of 1.5 hour cafes or circles. So that makes a lot of sense.
So as an example of a technical idea, technical point, you heard that for a conflict, for transforming a conflict, you may need 3 hours or more. So, and you just had experienced this 90 minutes circle. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And it crosses my mind that talking about emotions, Vincenz, some people that I would like to have an empathy circle with, because I don't find them very empathetic, I don't know that they'd be willing to commit that amount of time to try to have a discussion and work things out. But that's really what is necessary.
So when you're thinking about emotions and about some situations, you are thinking of people that maybe they wouldn't be willing to invest or to devote so much time to talk, but that's really necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I wonder how, as a professional, when I want to mediate or facilitate these discussions, and I do that with businesses, I wonder how I can persuade businesses to see the importance of investing that amount of time.
So as a facilitator, as a mediator, you are wondering how can you like transmit this to the businesses with whom you are going to work or you are working, because this is very important to really have the time.
I feel very well heard. Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you. So Adelina, can you hear me? Can you listen to me?
Of course.
So thank you. Let's see. Yeah, it's not that I'm looking for emotions. I'm a pretty squared person, very much. It's just that when I think about students and sharing stuff, for some reason I thought, okay, there should be some emotion, but not that I want to push it or something like that.
So it's not like you're looking for emotion. You don't want to push it. It's just like it came to your mind that it could happen.
Yeah. For some reason, there is something in my mind that tells me that for people to relate, there need to be some emotion in the air. I don't know, something like that, that it's hard to relate with people when we are just talking about ideas and about, I don't know, about talking about chemistry. I don't know. I don't know. How do you produce this salt or this acid? I don't know. I don't see like building relationships or community with this kind of discussion. Sorry, maybe I was too long, definitely.
So you're wondering how you could connect to others without emotions, and this is like this is what helps build connection and relationship with others. This is why it came to you that it's not enough coming from a rational way of thinking. It's also from the inside.
Yeah, it's like I can see in groups that when there is laughter, things soften up. So yeah, maybe, yeah. And then I also, in my discussion the other day, I probably felt that we're just stating ideas. So you said that. Yes, I did say that. You heard very well. Thank you. Another idea. Yeah, I heard that. This is very good. Let's go on. So it wasn't that dull, of course. It wasn't. But and people, I think people enjoyed it. But anyway, I'm just dealing with that. So.
So you're reflecting on how mechanical it can get at some point when you're just reflecting the ideas of the other, and it's only about the ideas, and it's not coming with some emotion there. Did I get it right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure mechanical. No, I didn't mean that. No.
That's how it got to me. Like, yeah. It was
Perfect.
like,
Perfect. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Christine, will you listen to me?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay. So yeah, I think that one of the things that I've been struggling the most when it comes to active listening is this idea of parroting the other.
I think one of what I hear you say is that's a concern for you, and repeating back, like parrot, like a parrot.
Yeah, exactly. It's and it was at least even now, actually, sometimes I still have I'm struggling a little bit when it's in English, because I have to find my words sometimes, and or it's difficult to find a synonym in English for just not to be actually repeating everything. But yeah, I will stop here in order to find my words.
Yeah, so a concern for you too is that English is not your first language, that it's a challenge to find the right, not the right word, but the word that would reflect it synonymously.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that I'm a little bit worried that I might lose the meaning behind the words. That sometimes this is, or at least for me, this is more important than the words themselves. And it can get difficult when it's too much that comes from the other side as well, and I might lose track. So yeah, it's not very easy, and it takes time to adapt.
So I hear you say that you're free to lose the essence of what is being said as you do the reflecting back, and that it really takes time to develop the skill.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, take time. So maybe this comes just like reassuring that it sometimes feels like this, especially when you're new to the process. So I think that this was one of my biggest challenges when I started facilitating these groups, because participants felt like it's going to, they're just repeating what the other is saying and has no meaning.
And that's something that you have seen in the past with new folks or beginner folks who just started, is that it's just being repeated instead of being understood.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Do you feel heard?
Yep.
Great.
Thanks.
Awesome. Edwin?
Yep, listening.
Thank you. So one of the things that Rosie mentioned earlier, oh no, not Rosie, I think Vincent, about emotions and how I'm not sure I fully understood what he's trying to say, but I feel like emotions are like a pathway to connection.
So you're trying to understand what Vincent is talking about the emotions, and that you feel that you sense that emotions are a gateway to deeper connection.
Mm-hmm. And also, I've been saying it's emotions are windows to parts of who we are. But I think it's like it's important to be able to regulate or manage it as a facilitator.
So as a facilitator, you need to manage or regulate the emotions.
Mm-hmm. And I'm excited and also interested to see how, again, going back into these controversial conversations and how to separate yourself as the facilitator or just someone who's really moderating the exchange and not be involved.
So as a facilitator, you say you need to kind of regulate the exchanges, not be so involved. So that's just something you're sort of sitting with, thinking about, or.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a skill. It's masterful to be able to do that. So yeah, it's a skill that I would absolutely want to continue to develop.
So you want to develop that skill where you can just help regulate what's happening and not be so deeply involved. And it's a skill to be developed for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty good at holding space of like people's emotions and not really like putting myself in. But when it comes to challenging conversations with parties in the room, that's when it gets murky. Is that the word? But yeah,
It's what?
murky.
Oh, murky. Okay, so to facilitate conflict, where there's a lot of strong emotions in a conflict, that's kind of where it gets a little bit murky. How do you sort of maintain that? And
Yeah.
okay, I guess that was the time. Feel heard enough there?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll
Evan.
speak to Vincent then. Yeah, I was thinking about the emotions going deeper, and a metaphor came to me. And the metaphor is like, those people who ride those trail bikes and they ride and they go and they flip and they turn and they do all this fancy kind of stuff. I get sort of the sense that you want to do that with empathy circles. And the empathy circles are a bit like training wheels. Let's learn how to ride a bike to begin with.
Yeah, so after listening what I'm saying and talking again and again about emotions, you feel like I'm imagining like people like trailblazing and doing all sort of stuff, and empathy circles is like this bicycles with small wheels. So you learn how to listen, how to empathize.
Exactly, they're training wheels. Like a regular bicycle, when you first learn to ride a bicycle, you have these little training wheels on the side and they keep you from falling. And so what we're doing in the empathy circle really, and especially in the training, it's having the training wheels, keeping clear rules and boundaries so we can learn, develop those skills, and then you can go take the training wheels off and you start riding. And if you fall, maybe you have to go back to the training wheels. So I think that's sort of the metaphor of the, for me, that kind of comes up.
Sorry. So you go around with these training wheels, and then when you get more experience, you take them out. And if you fall down, maybe you put them back. So no rush, just keep practicing, and then.
Yeah, because if you go take the training wheels off and don't even start with them, you just start going down the hill, with the big flips, you're gonna get killed. You're gonna die. You're just gonna land on your head and break your neck. So
So if you start without your training wheels and then just downhill, you're going to break your neck, to die. Be careful.
Yeah, and we're trying to teach everyone how to do the practice. So, and this is a module 1, right? And then so we need a module 2, which is a bit more, how do you get more into the felt experience? What do you do in these, how do you, and all that. So how do you listen more deeply? How do you speak more deeply? So that's like a module 2, I would say, for where we are.
So we are just starting module 1, and then there is module 2, where there is like more nuance about many aspects, about going deeper and stuff.
And dealing with conflict and that kind of stuff too. And then another thing is too, as the facilitator, if you're the facilitator, you're the first listener, so you can listen to people who aren't familiar. But then as the speaker, you can model the depth of the energy. So it's up to you to say, go into your feelings. And if you share those deep feelings, you'll set the context for depth for other people and say, oh, okay, if the facilitator is doing this, then it's safe for me to do it too.
Yeah, and as a facilitator, your first role is to be the active listener, but then as a speaker, you can go as deep as you want, and then you are modeling and you are like communicating that this is a safer space because this guy is saying all of this. I may do it. I may do the same.
Yeah, and in terms of the parroting, what you're not supposed to be parroting, but sharing your understanding. So it's using your own words. So, but if somebody's parroting and the listener feels happy with, the speaker feels happy with their words being parroted, then it's up to the speaker to feel heard to their satisfaction. So as the speaker, and if somebody's just parroting your words, you can say, oh, if you could reflect back more of the feelings I have. So it's really as a speaker, it's your responsibility to be heard to your satisfaction.
Yeah, and parroting is not like it's the law. Parroting, no, not at all. It's about reflection and sorry, it's about the other person saying what they understood or they heard, and then when they say that as a speaker, you have like the responsibility or the possibility of saying, I like you to like hear more of what I said, even the feelings that I communicated.
Yeah, so I'd like you to hear my feelings. What are my feelings? That's my time. I was going to model it. I feel fully heard. Yeah, but we should probably go into the next debrief, huh? Because we only have 8 minutes. So, yeah, thanks. I felt really heard by that too.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, and I was stopping myself from saying thank you for saying that. That's excellent. Thank you. That was great.
So how was the experience for you, Vincent?
It was fun. It was fun. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure I said everything I had to say on the introduction. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I tried more like to set a scene or a scenario, and I wanted everyone to visualize what was going to happen. But then I may have skipped a few important details. I don't know. I have no idea. But I was comfortable. And then, yeah, I was at a loss for some words or for some English words, but that's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I liked it.
I feel like you really tapped into our imagination. You really create a scenery there, and I got into the story that you were telling, and I loved also your sense of humor when you were saying that as a facilitator you're not doing much. There were I liked the image with the listener and the speaker. That was something that for me it helps when it's more visual. I was also thinking about doing something with the fingers when presenting, or I don't know. What I would maybe as a suggestion would be that when you're and I think that this is something that I also did. When you're presenting the roles, you can make it a little bit more personally, like talking, not talking in the third person, but maybe in the second one. Like as a listener, you will do this and this, and as a speaker, you will do that. And don't apologize. Words can slip our mind, so it's not a big deal. No need to say sorry. So that's it from my side. I know how it was for the others. Do you have any feedback for Vincent?
I think you took a very personal approach to, setting the stage. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the story. However, goes into your head when you miss a word. I think that's like just, English being the second language. It's like, and I could feel your hesitation or like the discomfort when you switch, but actually you're very confident. I would say you're eloquent as it is. It's not the perfection of how you use the language. It was more of how you deliver the message, and you delivered it very well. So, yeah.
Well said, Christine. And well done, Vincenz. I think something you said about your experience that you found was fun, that really came through for me. So almost right away when you started speaking, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like your energy was very joyful, which I liked. And I liked also the imagination, the visualization of the pretend we're all in a circle. I found that very helpful and a unique way of bringing safety to the space and engaging us. So it wasn't just, this is a safe space, but imagine we're all sitting together. Everyone's going to have the chance to talk. Everyone's going to have a chance to listen. I think that was a really good description that made me feel safe, not just you telling me that it was going to be safe. So I really liked that. There might have been some technical details that you missed, but I find those things just come out you know, when we'll figure it out when it's like, oh, how long does it take us to speak, stuff like that, that comes through. And just to reemphasize, I think what Christine was saying too about language, because it personally, it's one of my, what bothers me around inequities a lot is the dominance of English language. So I really liked that your sign was in Spanish about time. I think you should keep that, especially in English language circles, because why, like, it's great. Like, why should it always be in English, right? I love it. So yeah, please keep that. I think it's great. And the way you spoke was great.
And I'll second what everyone else said. That was, yeah, really captured it. And there's the attitude, there's sort of like an energy within facilitation. If you feel confident, you're having fun, then everybody, you know, I felt like, oh, I'm having fun. There was, you said, okay, who wants to speak first? You didn't set, I'll be the first listener, as I recall. So I just wanted to say that the reason this is like new people, the reason we're the facilitators, the first listener, is they model the listening. So that, you know, people will say, oh, that's how it works. And then you as a facilitator get to model how to speak, and you can select someone who you think is not going to be able to listen well to help them to listen too. So you're sort of, you're kind of, it's important to be with, you know, new people to be that first listener and to, you know, because you're not only, you're modeling it for the listening, but you're also modeling it how to speak well. And it really sets the tone. And so those are just general tips for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow.
So I don't think that we have more time to debrief. Probably the others are going to come back, right, Edwin?
We have about 1 minute. So
1
yeah, I
minute.
want to thank everybody for, this was really fun. I just really enjoyed it. And
it was a great
also the
experience for
overall
me.
facilitation at Alina, very nice, held everything, times and all that. So yeah, very well done there too.
Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed your facilitation skills.
Thank you. I feel like I learned a lot. Sorry. I feel like I learned a lot. So appreciate everybody sharing and comments today.
Same here. Thank you. And Edwin, this life work that you just, your mission, it's incredible. You're making such a difference. So
One circle at a time.
one circle at a time. Can I just quickly do a quick break?
Yeah, go ahead. Take care of yourself. You know, if you need to take a bio break or something. Usually we try to squeeze that in too. But if you need a break, right now is a good time. I actually turned my video off and went and did a bio break too. So do take care of yourself.
Okay.
I think it was very useful today's session for me. I mean, seeing like different styles of presentation, of introducing the circle and everything. I don't know, it was pretty useful.
Yeah,
And
we all learn
all
from
the-
each other. That's the beauty of it, is just learning from each other. So learning by doing. So I hear that that's working for you. So that's great.
She was right, Faithful. Just if you just show your face for a minute, then we can picture what you look like for the rest of the session. You were good.
Yeah,
well,
thank you. I tried showing that now.
Yes.
And also at the end, we'll have a group portrait. So, okay, Evelyn, you were doing this part, right? Okay.
So welcome back, everybody. We now have about 25 minutes. Each of us can take 1 minute each to share your experience. The question is based on today's learnings. How was your experience? What is the one thing you are most excited to practice before the next session? I will call out the participants first. Dominica. How was your experience? What do you take with you?
Yeah, it was definitely an experience being with Facilitator and learning to manage all the different pieces of the time and really being an active listener and all of that. But I really appreciated all the feedback that I got, and I look forward to using it with another group before our next training. And yeah, I really appreciated like positive feedback I got that felt reaffirming, even in relation to the work I do outside of this group. So that felt nice.
Okay, thank you very much, Dominica. Kendria, how is it for you? Kendria, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm sorry. I was trying to get to my mute button.
Sorry.
I told my group that it was really good. I came into the process today. My comfort level was at a 4, and now my comfort level is at a 2. And that's not a bad thing. That's just understanding that this process is not as easy as you all make it look. If you want to be thoughtful and intentional about managing a really good circle, we have to learn these pieces to get to the end of it. So I'm excited to see what the weeks will be and how we progress through them.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so Padia, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Hey, thank you. This is Sopadla here. Yeah, it's a lot of learning today, including the values, right? Generosity, and how can we use that whenever we are being as a facilitator? How can take help from them if somebody is interrupting our discussion or something, or you bringing the judgments. So that was really good, and the feedback from all the participants whenever we do this thing, right? So it's a great learning, I could say. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Maggie?
Sure, thank you. I can say that, yeah, the flow was really nice today in our group. Definitely echoing what I heard someone else say, that there are some pretty sort of complex ways that this all comes together. And it was really nice to be able to feel that kind of coming in together, and also how some other pieces were just more easy than they might seem on the surface. And the biggest, I'd say, thing that I'm taking away, other than just practice, is the idea that as we learn to understand others, that helps us to understand who we are. And that's something that's really beautiful about these empathy circles. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally?
This is my third cohort, and so actually first time to integrate timing with one piece of equipment, and also just wondered about the timing and whether, I just hope I wasn't talking when I was supposed to do a shorter segment. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Alfred? You have to unmute.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So so a few thoughts. One is there are a lot of moving parts, more than one would imagine, one would think. Keeping time, listening. Preparation. It comes to my mind that I need to be prepared, have my grid ready, have my clock ready, just have my thought process ready. Not just to jump into a conversation, even if it's free and new. And the other is to have self-empathy, not to be hard on myself about trying to get it right, and not flubbing and not getting flustered. And also setting a space where you let folks know that we all make mistakes, and not fear that I'm going to lose the group or not want to have them come back for them not seeing a perfect process.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. Linda? No, Linda is a trainer. Sorry, Eero?
Yeah, it was a great time facilitating, I realized that a facilitator is like a leader who decides how the whole circle will be. A leader needs to understand that you have multiple people within the circle. You try to guide them appropriately. Whatever you say is how they're going to go about it. So it's good you get more prepared so you can guide appropriately. That's basically what I learned from the circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosie?
Hi, yes. It was a great experience. I really learned a lot just watching and listening the other people practice. I definitely need more practice myself. There's, like everyone said, there's a lot to manage. So I'm just being wary of that. And I think in particular, for me was not just the words we're saying, so not just remembering all the steps and people's roles, but really trying to create an environment of comfort, as comfortable as people can be and welcome. And so it goes beyond just the steps or outlining the to-dos. It is very much what you say and how you say it to make people feel like they belong.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosie. Regina? Regina? Yeah.
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes. Everything everyone else said. It was quite amazing today. I really got to feel how the structure of it and how maintaining the structure as a facilitator is key to increasing that safety and allowing for the kind of mutuality, because what I found is once someone was talking about something I resonated with, I wanted to immediately go there with them. And knowing that I can always pick that up when it's my time to be the speaker, and not feeling the need to like parrot so much as to just try to capture the just several description words, and some of the emotion and what someone's saying was what I really got out of that. And it was such a great group with such great people. So I really feel like I got a larger sense of it, like visually, hearing it and just feeling it. And that's kind of my learning style. So I feel like I got it in all those ways. So now I feel like I got a really good sense. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Vicente, I don't know how to pronounce that.
You do it very well.
Okay.
Very well. Very well. So I did like the experience of seeing different facilitators. That was useful. Also, I learned ideas about how the facilitator can model listening, because he's the first listener. Also, how he can model speaking. So he's the second speaking, so he can give very good cues about what he would like to model, at least, and even model how he likes to be heard. So that was, for example, I mean, there were many gems, but this was particularly useful for me. And I don't know, and I liked the overall experience, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Christine?
Hi. I mean, I'm in the same group with Vicente, so I feel like we're in the same energetical wave when it comes to us trying to understand the depth of the work.
You mute.
Hello. Yeah, we now can see how key it is to really show up fully as a facilitator and make sure that you're present. I think that's one thing for me that's like I was not prepared for this. I didn't know what to say, and I was just winging the whole time when I set the tone. But the tone need to be set with clarity and presence and compassion and safety. And Vincent, Rosie, and Adelina absolutely, like, were able to do that for me and model that for me. And I also appreciated how now I'm trying to understand better and facilitating the conversation, not just like, what do you think or what's alive for you, but more of, I'm present with what you're trying to say. Let me actually respond to that so we can have, like, we're fully holding this thought and idea, and I'm there with you. So it was great. Thank you.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was saying yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I did I cut you off or not?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Then
you.
thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. Melissa?
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Evelyn. So yes, it was a great experience. I think I was one of the fortunate ones. We had two experienced trainers, Anne and Linda, in our group. So it was, facilitating was new to me. And, I got great feedback. It's very, very informative. It was a very informative group, and I learned a lot. So I am truly thankful. I also learned how, we right now we are seeing each other, so we are just taking for granted, and we're forgetting that some of us are in different time zones, and some of us are having, technical issues, and not all of us are able to, are as fortunate or, have that much of opportunities available, and to always remember to be thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Yeah, so it always strikes me how safe these groups feel, and having someone keeping track of the time when you speak just really lets you let go and really get into your own thoughts. So I really appreciate that. Looking forward to trying to relay, as the active listener, more of the emotions. We talked about how if an emotion is expressed and you don't reflect on that, how in a way you're not, showing that you're fully hearing the other person. And then the last thing that was really helpful is mentioned that if you want to bring more emotion into the group, by reflecting that emotion when you're the active listener, or by including more emotions when you're the speaker, it can help model that for the rest of the group. So thank you.
Thank you. Donnie?
So I talked about the concerns of intervention and whether or not I should break the empathy circle structure, and just being able to confidently talk about the structure of empathy circle and explain what it meant to be a facilitator, what it meant to be an active listener, to explain the roles and to facilitate an empathy group without worrying about so much as of these challenges. Because I'm really grateful for the people that were a part of this, because they already knew so much about it. And yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Donnie. Trying to think, did I miss anybody?
Yeah, me.
Gary, yeah. Well, I just was unsure because you were there before the session, so I didn't know if I should call on you or not. Okay, go ahead.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I learned quite a bit. I learned how your tone of voice can carry the momentum of the circle, and how you can make them feel comfortable and safe just by the tone of your voice. I also learned that I'm new at this and that I'm going to make mistakes. Trying to break down the three parts that are important that's in the intro to give people an idea on what the process is going to be like. And it was just wonderful to hear the things that the feedback I got. So I'm learning, you know, and that's what I'm in the process to do, is learn how to facilitate. I've facilitated other different groups, but nothing like this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I think do I have all the participants? Did I miss anybody?
Faithful.
Pardon?
Did you miss
Faithful
Faithful?
Faithful
No,
wife.
I spoke to Eero. I spoke to Eero. Yes, yes.
So you could call in some of the trainees, because we still have time, because it's a larger group. We weren't sure if we'd get to the trainees. So
Right.
we have about 7 minutes. So if you want
Yeah,
to call on them, it'd be
that's
great.
right. That's right. So Adelina, would you like to comment?
Sure. It was really interesting to be in the position of a trainee to see how the others are facilitating. So I really enjoyed all of their styles, and I think they're going to do a very good job at it. So congrats, everybody.
Okay, Joelle.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to support facilitators. I feel like there's already so much awareness and skill in the group that a lot of what I do is just affirm the direction that they're heading, and affirm sort of the confidence that they're going to keep learning and spread this in amazing ways.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia.
Yeah, I want to echo just what Adelina and Joelle have said. It's so much fun to be in the role of a trainee after having been a participant, and to see how others approach things, to see the level of beauty and skill and gifts in the participants. And I left our group today having such a deep feeling of gratitude, both for having participated and for the just what this process offers for me in body, mind, and spirit.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. Ralph.
So there's a strength of that I think each of us has, to be present, to become mindless, and somehow return to being present. And I think that the interchange in the circles enhance presence. There are a number of issues that came up that I'd like to be more skillful at: how to respond to feelings that are being transmitted, how to respond to crucial personal dilemmas and social dilemmas that people are facing, and got more of a handle on that. Thinking that time is my friend more and more. The idea of emphasizing the influencing the listener rather than trying to control the speaker, which now seems to me, as I say it, anathema. So that was lifted up. The worlds of experience that people bring to these circles, you know, it's not like anybody was born yesterday. There's just decades of experience that I revel in, and that we exist connected. We learn how to become disconnected, and empathy circles remind us of the fact that we are vitally, universally connected to each other. Oh, lots of stuff. I'm going to write a book.
You're gonna write a book. Okay, thank you. Did I miss any trainees? No, so I guess I can start with the trainers, right?
Linda?
Linda?
Real quick, there's a big responsibility that goes with being a facilitator in a group that's learning to facilitate. And I just appreciate all the openness that's in the group, that was in our group, willing to give feedback and accept the feedback. And that's a big deal for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Celine?
Well, I was in a circle of really skilled facilitators, so I'm excited about that. And Joelle was a trainee, and For me, she was calm. She did some problem solving without being ruffled, or at least it didn't show if you were ruffled. And there was such a sense of team support and comfort that came from Joelle that it was a beautiful experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Lou?
I am just feeling so much joy hearing all the learning that people are doing and the experiences, how they experience today. And I had a delightful, my group was just yummy. It was very delicious and just a lot of insight, a lot of learning. So I'm feeling grateful, and I'm feeling grateful for Edwin. It's an enormous amount of work to organize all of this, and Edwin does that, and that makes this possible. And so just feeling a lot of gratitude for bringing us all together to do this.
Okay. Anne?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm deeply grateful for each of the 5 of us, including myself in the room, and what we each brought from our own separate worlds that we're in, and yet we have so much in common. And there was one bit where I was reminded that sometimes when someone laughs, it's most often, I think, not laughing at, it's laughing as a release of tension or some light fear or apprehension, and how sometimes we misread people's expression of expressing emotion, and that those emotions sometimes get expressed in safe spaces which they wouldn't otherwise. So I was left musing about that.
Thank you. And last but not least, Bill?
Well, it was a revelation for me every time, is just how complex it is. After you do it for a while, you kind of assume, and it's always, and that brings me to a real appreciation of the bravery and of each person willing to put in the time to learn it. It's really important, and the work you're doing and the struggles you have are important, and I have tremendous admiration for you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And Edwin, I mean, we still have, I don't know, a half a minute or something like that.
Great. Well, I'll second what Lou mentioned about the learning. There's sort of these, I just struck with the levels of learning. As a participant, you're learning to facilitate an empathy circle, practice that. As a trainee, you're learning to facilitate that, as well as the facilitating the breakout rooms. As the trainers, we're learning to, facilitate the full group. And then, so there's all these different levels of learning that we're doing here. It's learning by doing, we're just jumping in and doing it. And it's a safe space. It's a place to, try things. You're not going to be judged. We're here to support each other at all these different levels of learnings. And it just feels really good. And just so grateful for everyone's participation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And that's the 25 minutes. So
right on the mark.
Right, yeah. So I think.
Hey, I think I'm next.
You're next. You're next. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I had to check. I had to check.
No worries, Evelyn. Yeah.
Okay.
So before closing, are there any final trainer comments?
I have a few. So I wanted to mention that the website, I had to update it. I was using the old Google Classic sites, and they forcing everyone to upgrade to the new sites, and it broke a lot of the links. So if you find the link that's broken, do send it to me, and I'll try to fix that. So I want to give you a heads up about that. We do have a cohort, an open intro cafe this Saturday. I invite you all to come to that. If there's, you can be a facilitator in one of the breakout groups. We have 30 to 40 or so participants. It's great to have a bunch of people who are doing the training or have done the training to help facilitate that. And we also have that LinkedIn event. I really would like to invite you to invite all your friends to the LinkedIn event for the intro cafe. There's something like 6,000 people who said they're interested in trying to get it to go even more viral, because you can invite 1,000 friends, your LinkedIn friends, and then it just kind of helps really get the word out about the intro cafe and about the training. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, Adelina.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. Linda, I see you raise your hand. Yeah. You're muted.
Excuse me. I encourage the participants to complete the evaluation that you find and put your questions that you want answers to in the appropriate section of the evaluation. Just because we do take time at the beginning to go over those. So.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. So let's review. Is there? Yeah. Lou. Sorry, Lou.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was really impressed in the check-in with how many people had held empathy circles during the week. I don't think we've had a cohort where so many people have done that. And certainly your learning in the training is going to be deeper if you're actually trying this. So I really encourage you to do it. Yeah, that's it.
Are there any other comments from the trainers? Yes, Bill?
There was one question. I'm not quite sure but people wanted more teaching and less. And just to let you know that that's great, but for the limited amount of time, we designed it to make this mostly experiential, because you can't kind of substitute that in that short amount of time. But please feel free to contact us, ask questions, get involved in a conversation. We're there for you. That's all. Thanks.
And I think you also had.
Yeah, and it was an encouragement to have your buddy call, and don't limit yourself to how many buddy calls you can have. If there's someone you'd like to have one with, do get in touch. They are invaluable. It's great to develop buddies while you're on the training. They will help you when you're ready to do your facilitating and you might need a hand. So please make friendships, buddy friendships.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so let's summarize what we practiced today. We introduced the empathy circles process with instructions on how to participate in an empathy circle. Everyone who wanted to practice facilitating a short empathy circle, and we debriefed the experience at the end of the empathy circle. Coming up next week in session 3, we will practice facilitating again. But next week, you will be able to decide whether to have some challenges from your facilitator. So this course is designed to let you go at your own pace. Next week, your facilitator will ask you if you want a challenge, and you can pick no challenge, an easy one or a harder one. Your trainer will not give you more challenges than you want. So this is going to happen next week. And we have some assignments. We'll send out an email with a reminder to fill out the session feedback survey, and the link should also be in the chat. We encourage you to hold the empathy body call. You will be paired up with a new empathy body. Just check your email and try to facilitate an empathy circle with family, friends, or whoever else you want to. And in the end, please just write in the chat whatever feeling you have after this circle, how it was for you. Yeah, so I think that for me, I can say that I'm grateful for this session. Okay, so I can see here relieved, grateful, inspired, appreciation, happy, hope, gratitude and connections, pleasant, nervous and excited. Thank you all. And before closing, may we have our jazz hands?
Turn on your video. Melissa, Donnie, if you can, Faithful. Let's get a picture of you. Yeah, Donnie, Faithful, can you turn Euro? Okay, see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Take care,
Have a
everyone.
good week. Bye-bye.